Would you mind if I pour us some tea first? It's just the right kind of afternoon for a warm cup, don't you think? There's something about chamomile. It's soft, almost like silence in a cup. The kind of silence that lets you listen inward. Earlier today, I was cleaning out the bottom drawer of the old writing desk. Yes, that one with the loose handle. And I found a stack of stationery I'd nearly forgotten about. Cream-colored paper, still wrapped, still carrying the faintest scent of lavender. I had bought it years ago. Thought I might use it to write letters to my children, perhaps leave behind a few thoughts, a few stories. But I never did. Not a single letter. It's strange, isn't it? The things we mean to do, and the time we somehow never make. But this afternoon, for some reason, I pulled the stack out. I placed it on the table, sat down, and for the first time, I didn't think about writing to someone else. I thought about writing to myself. Yes, to me. Not to the man I am now necessarily, but to the boy I once was. The young man who thought time was a mountain to climb, who believed every failure was a life sentence, who didn't yet know that being strong and being kind weren't opposites. What would I say to him? The question came quietly at first. If I could meet myself again at 25 or 30, what would I say? It felt odd, like walking into a room I'd once lived in but hadn't visited in years. I could still feel the air of it. I remembered the walls, but the furniture had shifted. Would I even recognize myself if I met me back then? He had more hair, I know that much. More impatience too. More certainty that life owed him answers, and fast. He walked like he had somewhere to be, like the world was a hallway and he was always late to the next door. But underneath all of that, I remember the quiet parts of him too. The fear he never said out loud. The hunger to be seen, not as impressive, but simply enough. The way he lay awake at night, wondering if he'd ever really matter. And here I am now, a man with a slower walk, a softer voice, and a life not quite like the one I imagined back then. I didn't become everything I once swore I would, but I've lived through things that younger me couldn't even spell. So I pulled out that first sheet of paper, held the pen above it, and let myself pause. It wasn't an easy breath. It was the kind of pause that comes after years of moving too fast. Have you ever had a moment like that? When silence presses gently on your chest and you realize it's been trying to speak to you all along? That's what it felt like the paper had been waiting, not just for words, but for me. And not the polished version of me that writes neat sentences and avoids messy truths. No, it was waiting for the version of me who still flinches at old memories, who sometimes forgets why he walked into the room, who has forgiven many, but not yet himself. So I wrote simply, to the man I used to be. And I stopped, because suddenly this wasn't just a letter, it was a bridge between the man I was, the man I am, and the man I'm still becoming. I wonder, have you ever written a letter like that? Not to explain yourself to someone else, but to finally be honest with you? It's not easy. It takes a kind of courage no one teaches, the kind that whispers, you don't need to be perfect to be heard, just true. As I sat there pen in hand, I thought about all the letters I never wrote, all the moments I wish someone would tell me, you're not broken, you're just growing. And maybe that's why this letter matters, because even if I never send it, even if no one else ever reads it, the man I used to be and the man I'll one day become, they both deserve to know that I see them, that I've been listening, that I remember. Let me ask you something since we're sitting here together. If you found a stack of blank paper that had been waiting for years, what would you write? And more importantly, who would you write to first? Write to the man I used to be, around 30, I think. I hope you're sitting somewhere quiet as you read this. Maybe on the edge of your bed after a long day, or leaning against the kitchen counter, one sock on, one off, half a dinner reheated, phone buzzing with messages you won't answer. Wherever you are, I know you're tired, and I know you won't admit that. You've always had that look in your eyes, like you're trying to outrun something. Failure, disappointment, the sound of your own doubts. You move quickly, you smile easily. People think you're fine. But I remember the nights you stayed up wondering if you were enough. I remember the silence of it, the ache that no one saw. I know how hard you're trying to be good, trying to be successful, trying to be worth something in a world that never seems to slow down long enough for you to catch your breath. And oh, how you believe you have to earn love, as if being loved were a prize you could win by working late, saying the right things, hiding your flaws. You don't even realize you're doing it. You just want to be seen. You want someone, anyone, to look at you and say, "You're okay. You can stop now." But no one says that, do they? So you keep pushing. You keep smiling at the right time, answering emails at midnight, pretending the loneliness isn't real. I know, because I was you. And even now, all these years later, I carry your questions, the ones you never said out loud. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if I try and they still leave? You don't tell anyone about those fears. You think being vulnerable is weakness. You think crying in the shower is normal. You think silence is strength. But listen to me. There's nothing weak about being afraid. There's nothing shameful about needing help. And silence. Silence can be brave, yes. But sometimes it's just you swallowing your own pain because you think it's yours to bear alone. It's not. You were never meant to carry all of it. Let me tell you what I see when I look at you now. From the place I stand, older and quieter, with a few more lines around my eyes and far less urgency in my stride. I see a young man with too much weight on his shoulders and no one to tell him, "You can put that down." I see someone who loves deeply even though he's afraid to admit it. I see someone who still believes even when he tells himself he doesn't. And I want to reach through this page and tell you what no one else told you back then. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be unsure. You are allowed to not know what comes next. You don't have to have it all figured out. Not by 30, not by any age. You keep thinking life is a ladder you're supposed to climb. One step, then another. Degree, job, marriage, house, family. As if there's a right order, a right time, and a right version of success. But life isn't a ladder, it's a field. And sometimes the best thing you can do is stop climbing and sit down in the grass. Feel the sun. Let the wind mess up your plans a little. You won't lose yourself by slowing down. You'll find parts of yourself you didn't even know were missing. And about love, let's talk about that, shall we? You think you have to be impressive to be loved. That if someone really sees you, messy, uncertain, not always right, they'll walk away. But the truth is, the people who matter will only draw closer when you finally drop the act. When you say, "This is who I am, scars and all," and the ones who leave, let them. You don't need to prove your worth to be loved. You don't need to be more charming, more successful, more anything. You are lovable as you are. I wish you could hear that. Not just read it, not just nod politely, but really hear it. Take it into your bones. Let it undo the years of trying too hard. You used to smile even when you were hurting. You'd say, "I'm good," even when your hands trembled. You thought admitting sadness was a luxury for people who weren't trying to survive. But you were wrong. Feeling doesn't make you fragile, it makes you real. And you, my younger self, are real in the most beautiful, imperfect, stumbling way. I remember the way you held your breath before every big decision. The way you called it courage, but it was really fear, wrapped in a blazer and a plan. I remember the late nights at the office, the missed birthdays, the apologies you meant to make but never quite found the words for. And yet, through all of that, you never stopped hoping. That's what I admire most about you. Even when you said you didn't believe anymore, there was always a flicker in your eyes, just enough to keep going. You never gave up. And that matters more than you know. So I'll say it clearly one more time, in case the younger me still doesn't believe it. You are already enough. You don't need to be more to be worthy. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, not even to me. And when life gets messy, when you make mistakes, and you will, remember this: you are allowed to begin again. Every day if you must. You will fail. You will lose. You will hurt people, and you will be hurt. But you will also heal. You will laugh. You will grow. You will surprise yourself. And one day, far from now, you'll sit with a warm cup of tea, holding a letter in your hand, and you'll smile. Not because you did everything right, but because you didn't give up on yourself, even when it would have been easier to. I miss you. I admire you. I thank you. You were doing your best. With all the gentleness you never knew you deserved of me. You probably don't remember what day it was. I don't either. Grief doesn't mark dates. It just settles into the folds of your memory like a fog. Thick, soft, disorienting. Some days I try to remember the order of it all. Which call came first? Which goodbye was the one that broke me? But they all blend together now. Not because they weren't important, but because I was too numb to hold them in place. So I write to you now, the man I was in those days when everything seemed to fall apart. When we lost Dad, when Mom faded day by day until the woman who once held everything together began to forget where the light switches were. When work no longer felt like a mission, but a lifeline, one fraying thread at a time. Do you remember how you tried to stay strong for everyone else? You wore the role like a uniform, the steady son, the responsible brother, the one who made the arrangements, returned the calls, paid the bills, kept it together. You held the door open for grief to walk through, but never let it sit beside you. Because deep down you believed that if you let it in, you might never get back up again. And so you didn't cry, not at the funeral, not in the hospital, not even when you stood alone in the driveway, keys in hand, staring at a house that no longer had her voice in it. But I know what you did. You cleaned the kitchen until your hands were raw. You worked late so you didn't have to face the empty living room. You stayed up all night watching meaningless shows just to drown out the silence that was now permanent. You blamed yourself too. Of course you did. You thought, if I had gotten there sooner, if I had done more, if I had just noticed, maybe things would have been different. You punished yourself for not being a savior. But love, you were never meant to save everyone. You were meant to love them, and you did. You sat at Dad's bedside when his breath grew shallow. You held Mom's hand during her worst nights. You stood in the doorway and bore witness to endings no one ever prepares you for. You showed up. That was enough. I wish I could have told you that back then. I wish someone had taken your face in their hands and said, "You don't have to carry this alone. You're allowed to fall apart too." But no one said it, so you tried to hold the world up on your own. And when your arms began to tremble, you thought that meant you were failing. It didn't. It just meant you were human. And then came the job, the email, the "we regret to inform you," the meeting where they smiled too much, the severance package in a manila envelope. You nodded, you thanked them, you even shook hands. Then you walked out to your car, sat in the driver's seat, and stared at the steering wheel like it had betrayed you. You didn't tell anyone, not right away. Because how do you explain that the thing you gave your best years to had decided it could go on without you? You thought, what do I even matter now? And I remember that night. You stood in the kitchen with the fridge door open, not looking for anything in particular. Just standing there, because even the sound of the refrigerator humming felt like company. You drank cold water straight from the glass bottle. You didn't turn on the lights. You didn't want to see yourself in the window's reflection. I remember how empty the house felt, but what I remember most was that you didn't scream. You didn't break anything. You just stood there and breathed, like that was all you could do. And maybe it was. Sometimes breathing is the most defiant thing we can do, especially when life makes no room for words. You stopped answering calls. You declined dinners. You gave short answers like, "I'm fine," and "just busy." But you weren't fine. You were grieving more than people could see, because loss doesn't come in just one form. It's not just people. It's dreams, purpose, identity, the version of your life you thought you were building. And when that version disappears, it feels like you're floating, anchorless, weightless, and not in a peaceful way. I want you to know, I saw you, not just the man in the mirror, hollow-eyed and unshaven, but the boy underneath, the one who just wanted someone to come and say, "I know it hurts, and you don't have to be okay right now. So let me say it now. You didn't fail. You didn't fall short. You didn't break beyond repair. You survived, even when you felt like a ghost in your own life. Even when you thought, maybe no one would notice if I disappeared for a while. I would have noticed, because I'm still here. And every breath I take now is thanks to you, not in spite of you. You kept waking up even when mornings felt like cruel reminders. You fed the dog, you paid the bills, you remembered birthdays, you smiled at neighbors. You did the little things, the invisible things, the things that no one claps for, but that hold a life together. And slowly, quietly, your heart began to heal. Not with fanfare, not with grand revelations, but with simple acts of choosing to stay, of saying, "I don't know where I'm going, but I'll keep walking anyway." I'm proud of you, not for bouncing back, but for not giving up when it all felt pointless. I know you didn't feel strong then. You probably still don't think of those years as strength, but strength isn't loud. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it looks like brushing your teeth in the dark, like returning someone's call even when you have nothing to say, like sitting at the edge of your bed with your hands in your lap, breathing through the ache. That counts. You counted, even then, especially then. So this letter, this chapter, this breath, I offer it to you as a hand on your shoulder from a future you once feared you wouldn't meet. Thank you for not disappearing, for choosing the next moment, for being broken and still holding space for hope. Let me ask you something, just one thing. before we end this chapter together, when the world went silent and no one was watching, what helped you stay? Think about it, because whatever it was, it saved me too. With tenderness you didn't yet know you carried me. There are stories I've never told, not because they were too painful, though some were, and not because they were shameful, though I once believed they were, but because they were quiet. They were the kind of moments that passed in silence, unnoticed by the world, but unforgettable to me. Moments I let slip, words I swallowed, doors I closed too early. And these are the moments that returned night after night when everything else went still. You see, I have forgiven many people in my life. Friends who disappeared when things got hard. Family who spoke without thinking. People who loved me the best way they knew how, even when it hurt. But I never quite managed to forgive myself. Not fully. There was that day, do you remember? I was in a rush, late for a meeting, phone ringing, mind elsewhere. She had called, the woman I once hurt but never hated. She said, "Can we talk later?" And I said, "Sure, later." But later never came because 2 days later she was gone. And I kept hearing that moment in my head again and again. My voice rushed and distant, her voice small and tired. And I kept wondering, what if I had stopped just for 5 minutes? What would she have said? There was nothing cruel in what I did, but that's the thing about regret. It doesn't need cruelty, it just needs absence. And mine was loud. Then there was the boy, my younger cousin. He looked up to me, always had. I promised I'd come to his recital. I didn't, I forgot. And years later, at a family dinner, he said, "I didn't think you'd come anyway." He said it with a smile, but I felt it. The crack in his voice, the quiet disappointment that children learn to mask too early. I said I was sorry, but not with enough weight, not with enough presence. I thought it was a small thing. It wasn't. And then there was her, the woman I loved, truly, but not gently. I didn't yell, I didn't lie, I didn't leave. I just drifted. I was so caught up in proving myself, in chasing the next title, the next goal, that I stopped seeing her. I thought coming home late with tired eyes was noble. I thought a quick kiss and a "sorry tomorrow" was enough. But hearts are not calendars. And one night, she sat across from me and asked, "Do you even see me anymore?" I didn't answer, because the truth was, I hadn't. Not really. And when she finally left, I didn't chase her. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know how to say stay. I was wrong, I'm scared. I still hear that silence, that room where no one spoke, that sound of a door closing softly, not slammed, not angry, just final. There are more moments like these. Moments I brushed past someone in need because I was too tired. Moments I stayed silent when I should have spoken. Moments I spoke sharply when I should have listened. And what haunts me most isn't the fact that I failed. It's the fact that I didn't know how to forgive myself after. I carried those memories like stones in my pocket, heavy but hidden. I'd smile through them, work through them, sleep beside them, because I thought guilt was a kind of loyalty, that if I let go of the shame, it meant I didn't care. But I was wrong. Shame is not love. It is not memory. It is not justice. It is a shadow, and shadows only grow when you turn away from the light. I never told anyone how many times I replayed those conversations in my head, how many fake versions I rehearsed where I said the right thing, called back in time, showed up when it mattered. I was trying to rewrite the past without changing the truth, but the truth stayed. So here I am now, older, calmer, wiser maybe, but still tender in places I thought would have scarred over by now. And I've come to understand this. I was doing the best I could. It wasn't always good enough, and it didn't always look kind, but it was the best I had at the time, with the tools I had, the heart I had, the fears I hadn't yet named. You can only act from where you are, and back then, I was lost, trying, pretending, but always trying. So I write these words now, slowly, carefully, with a hand that no longer shakes when the truth comes close. I forgive you for not knowing, for not showing up, for running instead of reaching, for choosing silence when you were afraid your voice would break. I forgive you for all the things you didn't say, for the I'm proud of you didn't offer, for the I love you that caught in your throat, for the I'm sorry that came too late or never came at all. I forgive you, not because what happened didn't matter, but because you matter too. And you've carried the weight long enough. You don't need to keep punishing yourself to prove you've changed. Your tenderness now is proof enough. Let me ask you something, not as a stranger, not even as an older version of you, but as someone who still remembers. What would happen if you let go? What would happen if just for today, you believe that you are allowed to be human? That you can hold your past without letting it define you? Would the world fall apart, or would you finally be free? Take a deep breath. Place the stone down. You don't need to carry it anymore. You are already forgiven. With more love than guilt ever allowed you to feel me, it happened quietly. No music swelled. No profound voice narrated the moment. No one was there to witness it. Not even the dog who had wandered off to chase a sunbeam in the hallway. It was just me, a mirror, and the kind of silence that's neither sad nor heavy, just honest. I was brushing my teeth of all things, something I'd done thousands of times before. But that evening, I happened to look up, not a glance, not a check to see if I'd missed a spot shaving. I looked, really looked, and the man in the mirror didn't flinch. I saw the gray in my hair, the skin a little looser under the eyes, the lines that formed when I smiled and stayed even when I wasn't. I didn't see youth. I didn't see perfection. I didn't see the man I once tried to become, but I saw someone I knew. And for the first time in my life, I thought, maybe you're not so hard to love. That thought stopped me cold. Not because it was dramatic, but because it had never occurred to me before. Not truly. I had spent so much of my life chasing love like a currency, something I had to earn, prove, barter for. I had convinced myself I needed to be more successful, more charming, more useful, in order to deserve affection, even from myself, especially from myself. But standing there in the bathroom light, the silence humming like a familiar tune, I didn't see someone unfinished. I saw someone who had been here all along, waiting for me to notice. There's a tenderness in aging that no one prepares you for. You stop competing. You stop performing. You stop measuring yourself against people who never really saw you to begin with. Instead, you start listening to the way your breath slows when you sit near the window, to the way your heart softens when you look at old photographs, to the way your body thanks you for moving slowly, gently, without apology. And in that slowing down, something happens. You meet yourself again, not the younger version full of hunger and heat, Not the future self you imagined would finally get it right, but the man who lived through all of it and is still here, still standing, still waking up each morning, still hoping, even in small ways. You notice the softness in your own gaze, the way your voice has lowered, not from weariness, but from wisdom. The way you hold a teacup with both hands now, not because it's fragile, but because you are worth slowing down for. And suddenly, love stops feeling like something far away. It feels close, homegrown, quiet. I remember sitting down that evening, cup of tea in hand, journal unopened beside me and whispering, not to anyone else, but to me, "You're not perfect, but you're real, and that's enough." There was no applause, no great catharsis, just a long, steady exhale. I had spent years trying to love other people right, trying to earn their trust, win their affection, live up to the version of me they needed. I was careful, thoughtful, giving. But when it came to loving myself, I was impatient, harsh, dismissive. I thought discipline was self-respect. I thought high standards were a form of love. But I never once paused to ask, what if kindness is more powerful than critique? What if love doesn't need to be deserved? What if it can simply be given? The truth is, I don't remember the first time someone told me I was hard to love, but I carried that belief like a passport. I presented it everywhere I went. And even when people tried to offer something softer, I didn't believe them. I couldn't, because I hadn't said it to myself yet. That night, though, just me and my reflection, I said it, not loudly, not triumphantly, just softly, like a prayer returning home. I think you're worth loving. Let me ask you something, if you don't mind me being bold. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and didn't check for flaws? Didn't tilt your chin, suck in your stomach, fix your collar? When was the last time you looked at your own face and said, "You've done well. You've carried so much, and I see you"? Try it sometime, not out of vanity, but out of mercy. We spend so much of our lives asking others to love us, but sometimes the person most starving for your affection is the one staring back at you each morning. And that person, he's earned it. Not because he succeeded, not because he got it all right, but because he stayed. Through the loneliness, through the heartbreak, through the self-doubt and the second-guessing, and the nights that felt endless, he stayed. And that, my friend, is the kind of man worth loving. I don't know when I'll forget this moment. Maybe someday I will. Maybe one day I'll look in the mirror and go back to old habits, sighing, critiquing, wishing for someone else's skin. But not today. Today I'm here, and so is he. And that's enough. And that's enough. Hello, old friend. I'm writing to you not out of worry, not to warn you or remind you or guilt you into anything. I'm writing to you because I want to stay close to you, even across time, because I know you're still me, and I want to meet you with kindness, before the world forgets how. I imagine you now, a little slower maybe, walking with more pauses than strides, talking with more silence between your words. And that's okay. In fact, I hope it's true. I hope by then, you've learned to let the world come to you instead of chasing it around like a lost train. I hope you wake up slowly, stretch gently, and take your coffee with both hands. I hope you forget the urgency that once gnawed at our youth. The belief that every minute had to be used to build something, prove something, chase something. By now, I hope you've traded ambition for attention. That instead of asking what's next, You ask what's here, because here in this quiet moment between now and next is everything. I don't expect you to remember everything. Truly, I don't. You may not recall every birthday, or why you walked into the room, or where you placed your glasses for the third time this morning. That's all right. Forget the small things, but I hope, more than anything, you remember the feeling of being loved, of being enough, of being here, even when the calendar forgets your name, even when the world moves faster than your legs, even when your reflection feels like someone else's. I hope you look at yourself the way I'm learning to, without comparison, without apology, without shame. You've made it this far. That alone is a quiet miracle. Maybe your hands tremble a little now when you hold a spoon. Maybe your steps aren't as steady. Maybe you sit more than you stand. I hope you do all of that with grace. You don't owe anyone a younger version of yourself. You don't have to walk like you used to, or work like you used to, or look like you once did. All you owe is presence. And truth be told, you've given so much already. So if you forget a name, forget a date, forget where you parked the car, let it go. But please, please don't forget to be kind to yourself. I don't want you to mock your own pauses. I don't want you to whisper insults to your reflection when the mirror shows time more than beauty. Instead, I want you to smile at yourself like an old friend who stayed. Because you did. You stayed. And now it's time to live with softness. No more proving, no more racing, no more lists to conquer or battles to win. Let this season of your life be about presence, about holding hands, not holding score. Laugh at the small things, hum while you wash dishes, sit by the window for no reason at all. And if you find yourself sad sometimes, because yes, that still happens, I want you to know it's okay. You don't have to be endlessly cheerful to be whole. Melancholy has a place in us too. Like old furniture we can't bear to throw away. Let it stay. Let it sit quietly in the corner. But don't let it speak louder than joy. I know you've lost people. By now, surely you have. Friends you used to call on Sundays. Voices that once filled your holidays. Names that still echo in your chest when the room goes quiet. Let them live in your memories, not as wounds, but as warmth. You carry them every time you laugh, every time you hum an old song, every time you tell a story that begins with, "You remember when?" Grief doesn't end, it just learns how to sit beside us. And maybe, just maybe, you've grown gentle enough to make space for it without letting it rule the room. I want you to promise me something, not big, not dramatic, just this. Walk yourself home. When the days get long and the nights feel hollow, take your own hand. Sit with yourself. Say your name aloud. Say, "I'm here. I'm still here." And that's enough. Don't wait for someone else to remind you that you matter. Be the reminder. And if the body aches more than it used to, if rest becomes more frequent than action, don't resent it. Say thank you. Thank you to your knees that carried you through decades. Thank you to your hands that held so much. Thank you to your eyes, even if they need help now, for seeing beauty in quiet things. This isn't the end. It's just a different kind of beginning. So take photos, not to post, just to remember. Call people, not because you should, because you can, and laugh, especially at your own jokes. Life was never meant to be perfect, just present. So here's my final thought to you, my future self. If you've become a little slower, a little quieter, a little more forgetful, I'm proud of you, because it means you made it, because it means you let go. because it means you learn to befriend time rather than fight it. I will walk gently toward you, and when we meet fully, when the man I am becomes the man you are, I hope you greet me with a smile and say, "You took your time, and I'm glad you did," with all the care I've only recently learned how to give me. The last page is here. Funny how it snuck up on me. One moment I was pouring words like tea into a waiting cup, and the next, I was reaching the end. Not because there's nothing left to say, but because I've said enough, for now. And maybe that's a kind of peace in itself. The paper's a little wrinkled now from where my hand has rested too long. There's a small coffee ring in the corner. I forgot my mug was a little too full this morning, but I like it that way. This letter, like me, isn't pristine. It's lived in. I've read back through what I've written, not out of pride, but out of something quieter. Reverence, maybe, or memory. Each word feels like a hand placed gently on the shoulder of someone I once was. I didn't expect to feel this much softness, but here it is. You know, there was a time I would have wanted this letter to be perfect, proofread, polished, maybe even typed. But not now. Now I want it to feel like a conversation that lingered past sunset. One where the tea went cold, but no one noticed because the words were warm enough. One where the pauses were just as sacred as the sentences. This letter, this whole strange, beautiful, unexpected letter, was never meant for the world. It was meant for me. And I think that's why it matters, because so much of our lives are lived in relation to someone else. Pleasing, impressing, apologizing, proving. We forget that the longest relationship we'll ever have is with ourselves. And mine, well, it took time. It took grief, silence, age, forgiveness, and that quiet moment in front of the mirror. But I got here. And now as I fold this letter in thirds, crease, press, crease again, I feel something I haven't felt in a long while. Not pride, not regret, just peace. I tuck the letter into a book on the shelf, one I've read twice and underlined in all the wrong places. I won't seal it. I won't label it. I don't need to. Because the man who wrote it and the man who will one day read it, they're both already here, sitting at the same table, drinking the same tea, carrying the same heart, only gentler now. There's something holy in that. And before I go, before I wash the cup and dim the lamp and let the silence settle again, I want to leave you with one last thought. One last breath in the quiet. I used to demand so much of myself, to be strong, to be reliable, to be useful, to be impressive. And now all I wish for is that I may be still breathing, still present, still gentle with myself, still here, and maybe, just maybe, still capable of offering love. Not just to others, but to the man who lived through all of it. Me. So yes, I've written my letter, and I've folded it, not to hide it, but to let it rest, with a smile. Because for once, I don't need to fix anything. I don't need to ask for more time, or more chances, or more words. I just need to say thank you. Thank you for reading. Thank you for staying. Thank you for becoming. And before we part ways today, I'd like to ask you something. Not out of habit, out of hope. If you were to write a letter to yourself right now, what would you say? What would you apologize for? And perhaps more importantly, what would you finally forgive? Take your time. The page is still blank, but it's ready. just like you are, with tenderness, me. Thank you for sitting here with me, for listening, not just to my words, but to the spaces in between them. I don't know where this letter found you. Maybe in a quiet afternoon, maybe in a moment when you needed something soft, something real. But I hope, in some way, it reminded you that your story matters too, that you are not behind, not broken, not too late. And if any part of this made you pause, or breathe a little slower, or place a hand on your chest just to feel your own presence, then that's enough. I'll be right here again, whenever you feel like coming back. Same chair, same quiet, same cup of tea waiting. And if tonight you feel brave enough to open a blank page, to say something kind to yourself, to forgive something small or something long held, then maybe, just maybe, this letter did its work. Until next time, take good care of yourself, truly, because you are worth it, always.